In early 1945, as the war in Europe approached its final months, decisions were still being made behind closed doors. Not on the battlefield. Not in public speeches. But in quiet rooms, deep inside occupied Europe. This is the story of one such decision, taken in silence, and never explained to the world. By 1945, Europe was exhausted. Cities lay in ruins. Rail lines were broken. Borders were unstable and unclear. Armies were still moving, but the end was visible. Everyone felt it. Officially, Allied strategy focused on final offensives and post-war planning. Public attention centered on conferences, surrender terms, and reconstruction. But parallel to these visible processes, quieter discussions were taking place. Discussions that never reached newspapers. Decisions that never appeared in communiques. Across Western and Central Europe, Allied military administrations inherited territories faster than they could stabilize them. Former enemy zones, liberated cities, and disputed regions were filled with uncertainty. Local resistance groups demanded recognition. Intelligence officers warned of sabotage, reprisals, and uncontrolled violence. Commanders were forced to choose quickly, often without guidance. In several regions, Allied officers faced a specific problem. Certain strategic areas contained sensitive infrastructure. Rail hubs. Communication centers. Archives. Not all of them could be secured immediately. And not all of them could be explained to civilian authorities. At the same time, reports began arriving from intelligence units. Some warned of ongoing covert movements. Others suggested that exposure of certain locations could complicate diplomatic negotiations already underway. The war was ending, but political lines were being drawn for what would come next. A small group of senior officers was assembled. Not in a capital city. Not at a major headquarters. But in a temporary command facility inside occupied Europe. The meeting was not recorded in detail. No official minutes survived. Only fragmented references remained in later correspondence. The issue was simple, but its consequences were not. Whether to publicly secure and document a specific military operation, or to quietly shut it down and erase its trace. This operation involved personnel whose presence could not be easily explained. Supplies that had no clear accounting. And actions that, if revealed, might raise uncomfortable questions among allies and civilians alike. Some officers argued for transparency. The war was ending. Accountability mattered. Others warned that disclosure would destabilize already fragile regions. That silence, however uncomfortable, would prevent further bloodshed. The decision did not concern a battle. It concerned memory. Outside, soldiers continued their routines. Guards stood at checkpoints. Civilians searched ruins for food. Trains moved slowly across broken tracks. No one knew that a choice was being weighed that would determine whether an entire operation would officially exist. The room was quiet. Maps were folded. Cigarettes burned down the filters. And the decision was approaching. The discussion did not last long. It did not need to. By 1945, many of the men in that room had learned to decide quickly. Intelligence officers presented brief summaries. They spoke carefully. Names were avoided. Locations were described in vague terms. Certain documents were passed by hand and collected again. Nothing was left on the table. The operation in question had achieved its immediate goals months earlier. But its continued existence posed a problem. It sat uncomfortably between military necessity and political liability. Its exposure could complicate relations between Allied forces operating in neighboring regions. There were also concerns about local populations. In several areas, rumors were already spreading. Unexplained movements, restricted zones, disappearances. The longer the operation remained officially acknowledged, the more questions would arise. One officer suggested a compromise. The operation could be formally concluded. Personnel reassigned. Records classified. Infrastructure dismantled or transferred. No announcement. No acknowledgment. Simply an administrative closure. Another officer disagreed. He argued that even classified records created risk. Archives could be opened. Governments could change. What was hidden now might surface later, without context. The solution proposed was more extreme. Selective erasure. Certain files would never be archived. Some reports would be destroyed. Others would be altered to remove references. Official histories would omit the operation entirely. Even internal summaries would treat the area as inactive during that period. The decision raised concerns. Not moral debates. Practical ones. Soldiers involved would need cover stories. Some units would be dissolved on paper before they physically disbanded. Equipment would be redistributed without explanation. Logistics officers noted the difficulty, but not the impossibility. Wartime chaos provided cover. Mistakes were common. Missing records were expected. By the end of the meeting, consensus formed. Silence was safer than explanation. The operation would end. And then it would disappear. Orders were drafted in neutral language. Transfers approved. Movements scheduled at night. Within days, personnel began leaving their posts. Signs were removed. Checkpoints vanished. Restricted zones reopened without comment. No announcement was made. No ceremony marked the conclusion. To the outside world, nothing had happened. To those involved, everything had changed. Some officers carried the knowledge forward. Others were reassigned and never spoke of it again. Within weeks, Europe's attention shifted to surrender documents and victory parades. The quiet decision was buried beneath louder events. And history moved on. The final stage unfolded without witnesses. In the weeks following the decision, the last elements of the operation were dismantled. Equipment was loaded onto unmarked vehicles. Facilities were cleared. Communication lines were cut. What could not be moved was destroyed. Soldiers followed orders precisely. No questions. No delays. They understood the tone. This was not a withdrawal. It was a disappearance. Some personnel were reassigned to frontline units still engaged in combat. Others were transferred to occupation duties. A few were sent home early, their service records shortened, adjusted, simplified. One by one, the human links to the operation were broken. The most significant moment came quietly. A final report was prepared. Then it was never filed. Instead, fragments were removed. Pages separated. References crossed out. The remaining documents were placed among unrelated records, stripped of context. To anyone reading later, they would appear meaningless. Local civilians noticed changes. Restricted areas reopened overnight. Guards vanished. Trucks stopped arriving. Questions were asked, but no answers came. Within weeks, attention shifted to rebuilding. Survival mattered more than curiosity. For the soldiers who had served there, the transition was abrupt. No debriefings. No acknowledgments. Their experiences were not officially recognized. Medals were not awarded. Citations were not written. The war ended soon after. Europe celebrated. Cities filled with noise again. Flags were raised. Speeches echoed through ruined streets. But somewhere between those moments, something had been removed. Not destroyed in battle. Not defeated. Simply erased. The decision had worked. There were no investigations. No public inquiries. No journalists asking questions. The operation faded before it could be remembered. Years later, historians searching archives would find gaps. Unexplained movements. Units listed without activity. Locations marked as inactive during periods when something had clearly occurred. But gaps do not speak. Silence explains nothing. The quiet choice made in 1945 held. And the story remained incomplete. No monument was built for what ended there. No report summarized the outcome. No official line marked the conclusion. The people involved dispersed quietly. Some returned to units that still fought. Others shifted into occupation duties. A few went home early, their service records shortened and simplified. What they had done was never mentioned again. The places changed first. Barracks were reused. Offices were stripped and repurposed. Fields covered old vehicle tracks. Roads erased the last signs of guarded zones. To anyone arriving later, nothing seemed unusual. Documents followed the same path. Files were missing where they should have been. References stopped abruptly. Dates aligned too perfectly with silence. What remained offered no explanation. Only gaps. Years passed. Governments changed. Archives opened and closed. Historians searched for continuity and found none. They noted irregularities. Unclear transfers. Units that appeared, then vanished. But absence does not accuse. And silence leaves no witness. Those who remembered aged. Some spoke privately. Some doubted themselves. Most stayed quiet. Without records, memory carried no weight. The decision made in 1945 remained intact. Not because it was protected, but because it had been removed before it could be questioned. In public history, the operation never existed. In official timelines, nothing interrupted the march toward peace. Victory celebrations filled the record instead. And so the story faded. Not defeated. Not resolved. Just quietly set aside. This was not a forgotten battle. It was a forgotten choice. Made deliberately. And left behind. In the end, nothing marked where it had been. Only the silence remained. Thank you for watching. New historical stories are published regularly.